Good evening. Welcome to Elyria City Council meeting for November 1st, 2021. At this time, I'd like to have a moment of reflective silence followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. Callahan, would you please lead us in the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Mr. Callahan. If I could please ask the audience, if you have your cell phones, please put them on silent or off. Thank you. Mr. Clerk, can I have a roll call, please?
Yes, sir. Mr. Callahan.
Here.
Mr. Sarah.
Here.
Mr. Oswald.
Here.
Mr. Baird.
Here.
Mrs. Mitchell.
Here.
Mr. Tollett.
Here.
Mrs. Simmons.
Here.
Mrs. Davis.
Here.
Mrs. Keys.
Here.
Mr. Jesse.
Here.
Mr. Stewart.
Here.
All present.
Public hearings.
There are none.
Can I get approval of the minutes?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Sarah.
Second.
Second by Mr. Baird. And any further discussion?
Question.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Remarks and reports from city officials. Mayor Whitfield.
Thank you, Council President. Good evening, City Council members. Just a couple things. One, we had our hackathon this past weekend, 2 weekends ago, and we announced our winners. And one of the winners is actually here today, Mary Bryan, and her idea was to form a winter market to start to spur small business development downtown. And so we'll be working with her on that idea, but she also won $1,000, her team won $1,000 cash prize courtesy of Windstream. So congratulations to her and the other two teams that won. We also wanted to let you know that we did receive the grant from the Nord Family Foundation. So we will be reporting back to you all on how that progresses once that board meets. The American Rescue Plan Essential Services, the community service portion, that opened up today. So now if organizations want to apply for grants to do essential services for our residents, the first round of applications are being accepted until December 3rd. You can contact Community Development or go on our website to get the application. And then this Friday, the first Friday of every month since April, I've been hosting these town hall community member meetings focused on community violence and crime prevention. And so we'll be having that meeting again Friday at 4 at South Rec. So residents and other folks are invited to join. That's it. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Mayor. Any questions for the mayor? Ms. Bryan, congratulations on your input. We appreciate that. That's some good things, and those are good opportunities that we can keep on building on and ideas that come forward from the program, the hackathon program. So congratulations to you on that. Safety Service Director Brubaker.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. Two quick things. One, leaf pickup began last week. So we are running trucks throughout the neighborhoods. Unfortunately, right now, there's not a whole lot that's out there, but they are picking up what is out there when they come across it. And secondly, I put at everybody's place an article from the Villager. It was about a Giada Pulig, who a couple weeks ago, in respect to the mayor's office, set up 2 blessing boxes here in the city. One is right outside City Hall. The other one is at South Rec, and she, as a part of her Girl Scout program, built these boxes with her dad's help, and these will store non-perishable food items. I know this one out here has been filled up a couple times over the last couple weeks, but there is one out South Rec and one outside of City Hall. Her father and mother are both Elyria residents or grew up in Elyria. Her both grandfathers grew up in Elyria, and one of them retired from the street department a number of years ago. So as a part of her project, she felt it was important to give back to the city of Elyria, where her parents and grandparents were from. And also kudos to Mr. Schneider from our Building and Lands Department. He worked with them to get those installed so that they would be secure outside both South Rec and City Hall. And outside of that, that's all I have, Mr. President.
Good. Thank you, Mr. Brubaker. Any questions for Mr. Brubaker? Very good. Finance Director Plesky.
No report at this time, Mr. President.
Law Director Deary.
Good evening. I have no report at this time, Mr. President.
Very good. Elyria Police Department, Chief Whiteley. Elyria Fire Department, Chief Pernesti.
Good evening. Two quick things. We had another unfortunate double fatal motor vehicle accident, Cleveland Street and 57. I think this is our sixth, thank God, sixth fatal. And then the only other thing is we will be taking delivery of our new pumper on the 10th. It will be going to Station 4 on the north side. And lastly, 2 weeks go by very fast, but he's too humble to say anything. But I hope at our next council meeting, the council thanks that man right there, Chief Whiteley. I've known him his entire career. There's nobody more honorable, nobody that's been a bigger help to me throughout my career, and really a fine police chief, but a better person. And one thing that I want you all to remember is that very few chiefs, fortunately, but still sadly, have to ever bury one of their own people. And that man did that. And he taught me something about class and handling a problem with dignity and respect and being a true leader 11 years ago when we lost Kerstetter. So that's all. I just wanted to say I hope that the next council meeting, it'll be his last, that everybody does something, because the man is a special person. And you can give me a elbow nudge when I come back and sit next to you when you yell at me. That's all.
Thank you, Chief Pernesti. Congratulations on your appointment and making it official. And the kind words to Chief Whiteley, they are well deserved. Mr. Oswald.
Through you, Mr. President. So, yeah, I have a question for you.
Chief Pernesti, if you can come back up, we have a council member who has a question.
Or you can stand there, it don't matter. So we had those accidents. All of a sudden, we're getting them at Cleveland Street and 57. Has there been some research done on why maybe this is happening? Because I know that's an intersection where people speed up because they know they're trying to catch the light. I know this is one of the things we're going to do with this traffic study, but is there a reason because of this that that's happening, or is it just, you know, bonehead mistakes or alcohol or what?
We've had 6 fatal crashes this year with 8 people killed in those crashes. It's the first one that's at Cleveland and 57. And this one was due, it was around 2:30 in the morning, and the one car on Cleveland Street was going at an extremely high rate of speed. And there's a possibility of alcohol being involved. So we can't say that with all of the crashes we've had, but we can say it with that one. We'll know for sure when the coroner's finished, which will take about 8 weeks. So for that specific one, it has to do with what the driver of that car was doing that night that created that. The one on Abbey Road, the double fatal on Abbey Road, we're still investigating the possible causes of that, but no alcohol suspected. None of that stuff is part of it. We're not sure at this point what caused that. But to my recollection, that's the only one that's happened at Cleveland and 57 this year.
Thank you, Chief. Any other questions for Chief Whiteley or Chief Pernesti? Very good. Thank you. City Engineer, Mr. Schneider.
Thank you, Mr. President. Street resurfacing is moving on. Hopefully by this time next week, we'll have all the asphalt down is what the contractor's anticipating as far as the street resurfacing portion is concerned. Next Monday, he plans on working on Gulf Road, so that will probably be shut down tentatively. It's scheduled for next Monday. That is from Wastewater Plant North to Windbrook Drive. That will be a mill fill, do guardrail, things of that nature. So that will probably take at least a week to do that work. We do anticipate the road being closed and detours being established. We will have our boards out this week, notifying the public as well. And we're just waiting to get the confirmation from the contractor that he will be starting. Also, on December 9th at 6 p.m. in council chambers, we plan to have a public meeting for Cleveland Street, for the remainder portion of Cleveland Street for the road diet. So that will be from 6 to 7 p.m.
What day was that, Mr. Schneider?
December 9th, should be a Thursday.
Okay.
With that, that's all I have.
Mr. Schneider, will we be able to get all the streets done this year? Is that?
The street resurfacing portion, yes, they will be completed. There might be some cleanup as far as adjustments for manholes. They are out there working on all those as well. That could lag behind. Abbey Road right now from Cleveland Street to 57, that is an Ohio Public Works project that's been approved already, that has been bid out. The contractor is behind on that one, and as of right now, we don't know if we're gonna get that one in this year or not, but it would be first thing next year, as well as Burns Road from Abbey to Gulf. That one still has to be bid out. We bid it out once. Numbers came in high because of the late in the season and people being behind. So we're gonna bid that out again and look to get better numbers for next year when that will be completed.
Okay, very good. Ms. Mitchell?
Thank you, Mr. President. Through you, we can start earlier. We can start gathering our streets earlier, get the list to you so that you guys can rank them, so that we can go out for bids earlier, because I don't want to see any streets not getting done because they're running behind.
Yeah, I agree. With the amount of money we're getting nowadays, it's beneficial probably to get out earlier. We did bid it out in June. It just, unfortunately, the backlog from the contractors, they pushed it all the way back until October 1st when he started. So it wasn't really us, it was just their schedules and how much work they had, the weather and all that type of stuff.
Sure.
Okay. We will definitely get it done earlier this coming for 2022.
Yep.
Thank you.
Ms. Keys?
Yes, through you, Mr. President. Could you give us an update on the crosswalks at the emergency room in UH?
I believe the materials have been ordered, and we have not received them at this time. I'd have to go back and check. Unfortunately, I don't have that with me, but I know we have talked about it and have put them out to order them.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? Thank you, Mr. Schneider.
Thank you.
Mr. Corzan, Superintendent Wastewater.
Thank you, Mr. President. If you remember, back in October of last year, I was talking about the Wastewater Epidemiology Network that was being sponsored by Ohio Department of Health. Just wanted to give you a quick update on that. And every Monday and Thursday, we send a sample out to a lab called Microbac, and it's a sample of the plant influent. And what we do is we send that to them, and they analyze it for the amount of viral RNA from the COVID-19 virus. And all the results are posted on the Ohio Department of Health coronavirus dashboard. So over the year that we've been doing this, we've seen spikes, and we've seen numbers come down, and we've thankfully, most recently, the numbers have been much lower. The numbers are still there, so it's not that it's non-existent. But if anybody wants to meet with me after the meeting, I can show you the trends. Unfortunately, I didn't get information over to the council clerk's office quick enough today to have it available on your screens. But I do have the trends. It's been really interesting because there's a lot of dynamics that go into how the case counts in Elyria vary with the numbers that we see from the wastewater samples. But you can definitely see trends in it. And right now, thankfully, the numbers are lower, but still existent, so, can't let our guards down yet, but we can see a light at the end of however long the tunnel is, so hopefully soon. I'll answer any questions.
Any questions for Mr. Corzine? Mr. Oswald?
Through you, Mr. President, am I allowed to change subjects from that? Because I'm curious at what point we are at getting some prices together for the Windward project and then the pump station over at Abbey Park down the street from Briar Lake. Are we getting that thing wrapped up so that we can get some numbers for a shovel-ready job when we're ready if we get money? Could you expand on that, those two projects?
Yes, thank you, through you, Mr. President. We do have data on the Windward Siphon. There were some flow meters that were put in the sewers back about a year and a half ago, and that information is being reviewed at this time. Once we have some conclusions from that, we'll be able to see what we can do, what size of siphon possibly, and that kind of thing. So that part we are advancing on. The other is still in the works, so we don't have any hardcore information as of tonight, but stuff that we talk about, again, we just had a meeting in the last week, and those topics came up.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Corzine.
Thank you.
Mr. President, if Mr. Corzine would like to get the numbers to us tomorrow or sometime, we can pass them out to the council people. We'll just email them, so. Oh, you? Okay.
Yeah, if that's information you can supply to the council clerk's office.
Well, I
Mr.
think he's ready to show it.
Oh, okay.
So.
Okay, I guess it's not connecting, so, but I'll have it here if anybody wants to see it, and
It's our office. And then we
yeah,
can
I
pass
have
them out
I have emailed the screenshots to Ms. Phillips, so.
Okay. So yes, if you can give us that information, we'll make sure that gets to the councils and they'll follow up with any questions they have for you, Mr. Corzine. Thank you. President's referrals and remonstrances. Item number 1, Community Development. Item number 2, Finance Committee. Item number 3, Finance Committee. Item number 4, Finance Committee. Item number 5, Finance Committee. Item number 6, Finance Committee. Item number 7, Finance Committee. Item number 8, Finance and Utilities Committee. Item number 9, Finance and Utilities Committee. Items 10 through 11 received and placed on file in the clerk's office. Petitions and remonstrances from the lobby.
We have 2. Mr. John Gall, 424 Augusta Drive. Subject, statistics and direction.
Mr. Gall, please state your name and address for the record.
John Gall, 424 Augusta Drive, Elyria. The destroyed rubble of Vicks, the old warehouse, Shane Furniture Store, downtown decay. The Midway Mall shell and empty restaurants littering the area. Open air Amtrak station. Research Point Crossing, Chestnut Commons connector debacle. Chestnut Commons and Route 57 traffic jams. Job situation, Riddell, 2017, we lost 320 jobs. 3M in 2019, 150 jobs. Moen, 2019, 73 jobs. Bendix, 2021, 550 jobs. Crime, the chance of being a victim of a violent crime is 1 in 392. Property crime, 1 in 58. There are 154 sex offenders with a ratio of 1 to 353 residents here in Elyria. MoneyInc.com rates Elyria the 19th most dangerous city in Ohio, 2019. Percentage of residents in poverty, 23.1. Median income, 44,324. Median house value, 107,989. Rent is $741 a month. The 2020 census shows a decline in population from 54,533 to 52,656. Labor force participation, merely 62.2%. The mean time traveled to work is 23 minutes. This city has a synergy of becoming a ghost town. This is the failing scorecard council has accumulated, especially over the last 2 years. This spectacular display of incompetence is as empty as the accomplishments as the Midway Mall is of shoppers. Things have gotten worse, not better. An example of this inept leadership is a failure to address the Third Ward councilman after his arrest for solicitation of prostitution. You said he has just been a stellar citizen in all ways. Stellar citizen in all ways? Really? Human trafficking? Really? Your weak call for resignation had Andy Young, editor emeritus of the Chronicle Telegram, say of council that you served their interests in divorcing themselves from him and protecting your power. It is evident your performance is pitiful and has failed the residents of the city. Your inaction to immediately remove your colleague off committees and demand resignation shows you do not have the stomach for the tough decisions, and you now will be called into account. Tomorrow, Elyrians will do just that.
Mr. Lowell Caven, 211 East River Street. Subject, general appearance of city related to garage or garbage cans, littering, parking on sidewalks, front yards.
Good afternoon, Council, Mr. Mayor, and your administration. I'd just like to make some observations, general observations about the appearance of the city.
Mr. Caven, before you start, can I, over here, Council President, can you please state your name and address for the record?
Sorry.
That's okay.
Sorry. Lowell Caven, 211 East River Street, Elyria. Okay. As I said, I'd like to make some observations, or general observations about the appearance of the city, and one of my main problems, or one of the main things that I've contacted Safety Service Director and my councilman about is garbage cans left in the streets, specifically in my area. I've seen them in other places, but on my street, across the street from where I live, and on curb lawns. Other observations, garbage cans overfilled many of the business and city areas, too much littering in business parking areas and entrances. And the reason I bring some of this up is because I have a part-time job where I take care of a business property out on, out on Abbey Road, and there's bushes in the front of the property and along the area where you walk into the store, and it's a Dollar Tree store, and the other stores don't have that set up, so people tend to throw anything they can discard when they get out of their cars into the bushes, from diapers to what do you call it, when you fill up your reservoir in your vehicle, radiator. Well, they have certain products at the dollar store that have those containers, so they end up throwing those into the bushes and so forth. And on the north side of the building, because people can park on the north side, people tend to just discard stuff there, especially in the evenings when it's dark. So the main thing is, I'd just like some kind of response from council or the Safety Service Director. Seems like something should be done, especially with these the garbage cans. My councilman, Kenny, has come by several times and taken the cans and set them up on the curb lawns. or laid them up on the curb lawns, and they still sit there. Actually, the cans I'm referring to in front of my house, they've been there for a solid month. And I've just refrained from even calling council, or not council, but the safety service director, because nothing's been getting done. So can anyone help me?
Well, Mr. Cavan, I know that we've tried to address the situation with the sanitation department, putting letters on the cans in themselves, knocking on the doors of those owners. And, you know, we'll continue to do that and work closely with the Safety Service Director's Department to try to keep encouraging our residents to put the cans in, because it is, you know, an eyesore in the area, and what you're relaying to is, you know, in the buildings with the cans or dispensary of when they're filling up their oil in their cars and just kind of puts it aside. So what I do is I'll follow up with you again after this meeting. We'll sit down with the safety service director and see if we can't come to some agreement on a path moving forward to kind of really deal with the situation. Mr. Oswald.
Through you, Mr. President. Okay, so we've been going through this for a long time, and we've been doing exactly what we've been told. They've been putting notes constantly. They've been told. It's habitual. I know it's going on in other areas, and we don't seem to have any bite. And there needs to be some serious conversation how we can handle this, because first off, you know, it's a violation, but by the time they get it, then they skirt the courts, and it's just all of wasted time for us. We need to find a better way. And it is, I go by, I'm tired of calling. So I just take the garbage cans up, you know, because I know Lowell's been looking at this for a long time. So we really need to find another way to sit down and brainstorm and see what we can do, because it's just not our neighborhood, it's other neighborhoods also. Thank you, Mr. President.
Mayor Whitfield.
Thank you, Council President. Mr. Cavan, I thank you for sharing the feedback. I think one thing that I know resonated with me is in terms of when you go around town and you see trash cans full or you see things out and about, often when we talk internally, we've been faced with like, whose job is it? And so part of what we're doing is looking at trying to reorganize our staffing structure so that it's all of our jobs. It's not just a sanitation thing. It's not just a parks thing. It's a full, you know, public service thing. So hopefully you'll see some traction on that next year, where because it's been on my radar. You know, I'm not only the mayor, but I consider myself like a user of our public spaces. I go to them, I frequent them, so I see things, and I've been talking with the safety service director about us really getting a handle on that. And then the other piece is we just gotta, you know, Councilman Oswald's point, we got to hold people accountable. You know, when they throwing stuff out the windows, we need to have some accountability. But ultimately, we need to foster enough pride in the city where people won't do that anymore, where they'll feel like, hey, this is my city, I'm not going to let it look that bad. But when you get a lot of commentary that's so negative about the city, people feel like, oh, man, maybe this is a ghost town, maybe it is run down. So the more people keep hearing that negativity, it's hard for people to then muster up to say, yeah, I have pride in this place. So we just need people who are proud of their city, who do a great job at keeping up things, to be more outspoken and be more prideful in what they do. So that spirit can rise up within the city. So we're doing our best on all three fronts to try to make something different. Thank you.
One last thing. Is there any way to hold the owners of the properties responsible? Because in a lot of cases, not in every case, these are renters who just don't have any pride and don't care. That's what I've observed in my area. So is there any way to hold owners of the properties responsible where they can at least, you know, let the tenants know that, hey, you need to do this, you need to take care of your...
I'm going to, Law Director, Mr. Cavan, Law Director Deere, and then Safety Service Director Brubaker.
Through you, Mr. President, yeah, the short answer is yes, there's an ordinance on the books, and these people may be cited by law enforcement, and if that were to happen, then yes, we would take them to the courts. I'm not going to try to sugarcoat it and try to say that that would magically solve all the problems, but like anything else, it may very well solve some of the problems. If somebody's going to actually be taken to court for not taking their garbage cans up, I would probably think twice about being remiss in taking my garbage cans up. But I also think that there are situations where somebody's not in the position to be able to take their garbage cans up? And do we want to, as a city, to be citing those people? Because there's no way for us to, as a community, to be, taking them on a case-by-case basis like that. And also, do we want to, it's a matter of resources, and that's not a matter for the law director's office. That's going to be a matter of administration and otherwise to say, is that how we're going to be utilizing our police? So it is a complicated question. But so the short answer, which I've now sadly made longer, is yes, there is enforcement. And could the enforcement be taken against the property owners? Yes. Could it also be taken against the tenants? Yes. My 2 cents is, do I think that will solve the problem? No. But it is an option.
Very good. Well, we'll continue to look into that, Mr. Caven. Mr. Bubricker, if you wanted to weigh in.
The law director hit the bulk of what I was going to say, but we do, when we cite when we get a property maintenance complaint, whether it's trash or the house or whatever is in disarray or bad, we have to cite the owner. That's who the notice of violation goes to. If it's a rental property, we will send a notice of violation to the rental property, but also to the owner. When it comes to the trash cans, and this is a battle Mr. Caven and I have fought for a number of years, particularly with this address, we will send, I've went out, sanitation has went out, left notes with the cans. The only enforcement that we have from 11 years ago, 12 years ago, when this program was instituted, is a $50 fine per day by ordinance that would have to be issued by the Elyria Police Department. And as the law director said, we would have to have an internal discussion, if that's how we will utilize our resources.
Sure. Very good. Miss Mitchell?
Thank you, Mr. President. Through you, Mr. Caven also touched upon cars parking across the sidewalks, on lawns, and Mr. Brubaker, you and I have had a running battle with this one homeowner who refuses to park his car on the street. And the only thing I can tell my residents is to call the police. Well, that's not a good use of their time, but what do I tell my residents? I have to tell them, call the police. So something has to be done. I mean, if there is an ordinance on the books, you cannot park your car in the grass. You cannot park across the sidewalk. But if it's not being enforced, it does no good.
And through you, Mr. President, Ms. Mitchell is correct. When we get those calls, it has to go to the building department. Building department has to cite the owner, and they get 30 days to comply. Well, when they comply, it starts all over. So what I will typically do when Mrs. Mitchell or somebody else, I will call the on-duty in charge, and we try to send a car over that way to deal with it. But with everything else going on, it may be a while before they get there.
Thank you. Petitions and remarks to some council members? We have a couple. Mr. Tollett? Mr. Tollett?
Would you prefer me to do it from my seat here?
Whatever you feel is comfortable.
Would it be best? We're good? Thank you, Mr. President. During this election season, one of the very loose words being thrown around is the word character. I'd like to introduce a new one, hypocrisy. When the Republican candidate skipped a public debate to attend a fundraiser for Jim Jordan instead of discussing the issues publicly so that the public could understand what each stood for, this is hypocrisy. Jim Jordan, as we know, participated in the largest cover-up in American history of molestation of 1,500 students at Ohio State University. Where's the anger? Where is the anger? Instead, you raise money for him. You fly the flag of a twice impeached president who cheated on all three of his wives, including prostitutes. I'll include Stormy Daniels in that. and then you attack all of city council for the actions of one. This is hypocrisy. To my independent running mates, one of your candidates beat a woman unconscious, breaking out teeth, holds a felony conviction, and holds numerous other domestic violence convictions. Where's the outrage in that? Where is it? Again, I call this hypocrisy. When I think about this, I think of my fellow council members, Mrs. Mitchell, Mrs. Simmons, Mrs. Davis, Mrs. Keys, getting beat unconscious. I ask the voters, think about this tomorrow when it's your turn. See, the voters see through hypocrisy. They are much more in tune with these issues than you think. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tolet. Ms. Davis.
Good evening. My name is Brenda K. Davis. I reside at 684 Bell Avenue. I have resided in the city of Elyria for over 50 years, and I am the second ward councilwoman. I find it difficult to understand the motives of these people who are wanting to drastically change the city body, making decisions, and does business when we are governed by our city ordinance. These individuals make sure to stop in and criticize, but they forget to consider the leadership from whom they work. It was on their doorstep first. Has there been any offer to train all employees for human trafficking? This training could be implemented through the mayor's office. But no, the vocal opposition would rather clap, high five, big hugs during a pandemic than work on training city employees. They would rather change the city council by showing up 2 or 3 times a year, complaining, and instead of trying to learn the true function of council. The opposition group wants council to have scheduled times for our constituents to be able to speak to us. But my colleagues and I, we have let our constituents know that we are available 24/7, phone call away. Council is committed to the city and all the residents with the truth, and we fight and work together for the betterment of this great city where the lights will never go out.
Thank you, Ms. Davis.
That's all the rosters from council members.
Reports of standing and special
There are none.
committees. Resolutions first reading.
Sponsored by Finance. A resolution designating Fifth Third Bank and Huntington National Bank as public depositories eligible to receive and accept active, inactive, and interim funds for deposit, subject to the revisions of the Section 135 of the Ohio Revised Code for a 5-year period beginning December 1st, 2021. Director to enter into an agreement for the deposit of active, inactive, and interim funds with said public depositories.
Mr. Tolet.
Mr. President, I ask that this resolution be passed in its first reading under suspension of rules.
Second.
Second by Ms. Davis. Is there any further discussion?
Question.
On the suspension, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. On the passage, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Resolution 2021-28. Sponsored by Finance. A resolution finding that the city has unfit for City of Elyria municipal use certain city property. Mr. Tolet.
Mr. President, I ask that this resolution be passed in its first reading under suspension of rules.
Second.
Second by Ms. Davis. Is there any further discussion?
Question.
On the suspension, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. On the passage, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Resolution 2021-29. That's all resolutions first reading. Resolutions second reading. There are none. Resolutions third reading. There are none. Ordinances first reading. Sponsored by Finance. An ordinance authorizing the Safety Service Director of the City of Elyria to dispose of city property that is unfit for municipal use. Mr. Tolet.
Mr. President, I ask that this ordinance be passed in its first reading under suspension of rules.
Second.
Second by Ms. Davis. Is there any further discussion?
Question.
On the suspension, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. On the passage, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Ordinance 2021-165. Sponsored by Finance. An ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into a contract to purchase 2 new vehicles for the Elyria Municipal Court through the State of Ohio Purchasing Program or equivalent program and declare an emergency. Mr. Tolet.
Mr. President, I ask that this ordinance be passed in its first reading under suspension of rules and declared an emergency.
Second.
Second by Ms. Davis. Is there any further discussion?
Question.
On the suspension, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. On the emergency, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. On the passage, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Ordinance 2021-166. Sponsored by Finance. An ordinance amending ordinance number 2021-50, known as the 2021 Permanent Appropriations Ordinance, to change funds in various accounts. Mr. Tolet.
Mr. President, I ask that this ordinance be passed in its first reading under suspension of rules.
Second.
Second by Ms. Davis. Is there any further discussion?
Question.
On the suspension, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. On the passage, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Ordinance 2021-167. Sponsored by Finance and Utilities. An ordinance authorizing the mayor to submit an application for, and accept, if offered, a transportation for livable communities inactive TLCI grant, and said funding to be for City of Elyria wayfinding signage project, and declare an emergency. Mr. Tolet.
Mr. President, I ask that this ordinance be passed in its first reading under suspension of rules and declared an emergency.
Second.
Second by Ms. Mitchell. Is there any further discussion?
Question.
On the suspension, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. On the emergency, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. On the passage, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Ordinance 2021-168. That's all ordinances first reading. Ordinances second reading. There are none. Ordinances third reading. There are none. Committee calls. Community Development requests the Law Director, Safety Service Director, Building Inspector, and Engineer on Monday, 11/8, 6 p.m. All items referred in the council chambers. Joint CD Finance requests the Mayor, Law Director, Finance Director, Safety Service Director, and Engineer on Monday, 11/8, immediately following the CD. All items referred. Joint Finance, Utility, Safety, and Environment requests the Mayor, Law Director, Finance Director, Safety Service Director, Engineer on 11/8, immediately following Joint CD and Utilities. And Finance requests the Mayor, Law Director, Finance Director, and Safety Service Director, Engineer on Monday, 11/8, immediately following the joint Finance Utilities meeting. Strategic Planner requests the Mayor, Safety Service Director, Finance Director, and Law Director on Monday, 11/15, immediately following the council meeting. All items referred.
Miscellaneous and unfinished business.
President.
Mr. Baird.
Yeah, I guess I can't let some of this go by. I'm a little disheartened. We've always thought getting along here, Elyria City Council, to take care of the business at hand. Bringing up issues that have nothing to do with us, and throwing out accusations on both sides I've heard tonight. And I don't care for it. I'm going to be leaving this body at the end of the year, and I hate to think that we're going that way. We're better than that. We don't have to make accusations and accuse our friends and our neighbors of things that other people have done. I think it's unfair. I think it's inaccurate. We have problems, no question. We all know that. I think we try to address them the best we can, and we work together to do that. And I guess that's all I'll say, because I just am disheartened by it. When we get up and start throwing out accusations, using hyperbole for things that are said, that just isn't what we do to make things work. So that's all. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Baird. Ms. Keys.
Thank you, through you, Mr. President. I'd like to take the opportunity to thank my council colleagues, department heads, and city employees for the many beautiful expressions of sympathy at the recent loss of my father. It meant a great deal to my entire family, and I am eternally grateful. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Keys. Is there any further else of miscellaneous and unfinished business? If not, entertain a motion for adjournment.
Move to adjourn, Mr. Chairman.
Second. Moved by Mr. Baird, second by Mr. Sayre. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carried. This meeting is adjourned.
Y'all got a heated meeting? I know, 'cause you gotta get up early.